expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
For the Aussie Gridiron Network, welcome in to the NFL SuperCoach Halfa podcast. We're at week 13. And mate, this week is a cracker. 3 games on Friday, another on Saturday, no teams on a bye, and only 4 teams with a bye remaining. So much to talk about. Better bring in Australia's finest fantasy football analyst. It's Taylor. How are you, mate?
Matty C, I'm super fucking keen for week 13. Oh. If you had Jahmyr Gibbs, I bet you couldn't stop playing with your pain. Let's go!
That guy. Oh my gosh. I haven't met anyone yet who was brave enough to captain him. But, I mean, God, could you imagine the jump start? It wouldn't matter what you've got. You just loop, wouldn't you? You just loop.
Yeah, I saw a couple floating around that had him as their vice captain, so obviously it was a pretty easy loop. Yeah, he just went absolutely bonkers. I had a couple of leagues in regular NFL fantasy where I faced him. I had a couple that I had him, and it was just, you knew your week was over if you faced him, and you knew you'd won if you had him. It was just one of those weeks. He just went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, incredible. Just did all the heavy lifting, 264 total yards. Some teams don't get that in a week. I mean, it's absurd.
Absolutely, mate. Do you know what else is absurd? We're going to have this podcast out super early. I think people are going to lose their shit. They're not going to know what's happened. But look, after last week, we basically stitched together us and different. We couldn't get on the podcast together. And I sent through some voice memos that you could chuck on, and then you hopped on later. We obviously couldn't get it done until Saturday, so we thought, you know what, we're going to get this done real early. We're going to make it a priority. So hopefully, it coming out a lot earlier this week sort of helps the super coaches a bit more out there.
Yeah. With any luck, this will be something where it's just a much smoother run through the end of the season too. But mate, I'm super thrilled because even though that worked out okay, the way it's stitched together, it's not that is literally the break glass in case of emergency version of trying to make sure that we can get the information out in the face of tough scheduling. So. Tell you what, let's get into it. We've got a few things to get through. There's a lot of trade in, trade outs. We definitely want to pay some homage to some guys, as well as a pretty hefty mailbag. Well, the first step is to talk about the free stuff real quick. For those who are late adopters, we've got a SuperCoach league running through the SuperCoach app. That number for our league is 962235. Why would you care? Because there's free shit on the line. The winner of that competition is going to bag themselves a pretty nice custom NFL jersey. Pick any player you like. And after last week, Jahmyr Gibbs is a pretty good choice. There'll also be a bit of AGN swag to the winner as well. But that's the reason why you want to get on there, because there is some heavily competitive folks in there. We'll get into who's in the top 5 in a minute. But it is always nice to pick up some free stuff, and always nice to get the opportunity to see how other people are approaching their SuperCoach. So join that league. 962235. Tate, some of the members we've got in the top 5 at the moment are becoming legacy members.
Absolutely, mate. And look, everyone at the top, you better be looking over your shoulder, because I'm flying home. I'm nearly in the top 100 in that league, Matty C. Nearly in the top 100. So, look, it is just all coming together for yours truly at the moment. But look, we always want to touch on the top 5. Because honestly, like the support we've had from you guys has just been phenomenal. And, you know, we obviously wanted to do a very good prize for you guys for this first year. And obviously the hope is that the podcast can only go from strength to strength as more and more people come will sort of flock to this NFL SuperCoach platform moving forward. But we always want to start the show, obviously, with my awesome rhyme. But next up, obviously talking about the leaderboard in the top 5. And I'll go straight into the person at first, because he's kind of been a mainstay over the last few weeks in the top 5, and he's got the number 1 spot. It's Penix in your Butker, coached by Yarpin, and he's actually up to 14th overall. So he's nearly into that top 10 on the entire platform. So huge congratulations to Yarpin.
I mean, and he goes by Tom in real life, and I've get my ass kicked by him in other versions of fantasy at the moment too. And his life sounds like it's coming together. Last time we talked about him too, he was sunning himself on a Vanuatu beach. So his life's going pretty well. But to go from a player who was in the top 30 of SuperCoach in its entirety, when there's 33,000 registered players, to now being 14th is extraordinary. He's been averaging 520 plus a week, which sort of shows you just the wonderful consistency he's got from the team he's built. Incredible. Well done, Tom, Yarpin, Penix in your butt car, Randall McSupercob. They're all the names that I know you as at the moment. there's probably more.
Well, this is the proof of the concept I've been bringing up every single week. The next couple have actually sort of just flown into the top 5 this week. They have scores over 600 to get them in there. So this is proof again. You don't have to be in the top 5 right now. Just keep pushing and, don't give up. So we've got Ashton Gentezes, coached by Joshua, who's in 43rd overall. So he scored a tick over 600 this week. And in 3rd, we've got Neighbours Penix Hurts Me. It's coached by Tyler, who's in 46 overall. So those two just came flying into the top 5 this week with massive scores. So I'd say they'd probably be very Jameer Gibbs loaded on those teams. But look, just congratulations to those two. They're sitting in 2nd and 3rd place now.
There's 2 things about that. Firstly, that Ashton Gentezes run by Joshua, they've jumped 70 spots in overall SuperCoach. Amazing in a week. But get a load of Tyler's team in 3rd there. Neighbours Penix Hurts Me. Great name. He's gone 143 places into the top 50 in SuperCoach overall this week. Incredible. These are guys with total team scores for the year of over 6,200. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. Next one, we've got Team Bring It by, I always fuck this name up, but I'm sorry, mate, but Iuni.
Let's go with it.
He's close enough. You can throw a flaming bag of dog shit through my window, mate, if I'm getting it completely wrong, but he's sitting in 58th overall. And then to round up the top 5, we've got Slappers, who's been in there a few different times, coached by Alistair, and he's sitting in 66th overall and 5th in our group. Unreal. So congratulations to the top 5.
Unreal. And I mean, these are all, those 3 in the middle have been big jumpers, but not all of them are new to the top 5. We've had some of these names come up week in, week out, like Slappers has been 4th, 5th most of the last couple of weeks. Penix in your butt at the top there has just been super consistent. But then you see weeks like this, someone goes and throws up a 645. That seems illegal. It just shows every week is a week in its own. It is a season-long game, but it's also a weekly game. Don't forget the power that 1 week can have. And that's really well described there. At the moment, Tom in pole position to win the custom NFL jersey and the AGN swag. But don't count yourself out. If you've got mates who are playing SuperCoach who haven't joined our league, get them in there. 962235 is the league code.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge kids faster.
Now, Tay, we do this every week. We go through the most traded out and the most traded in. I'm always so interested in the people trading out because that to me says that there's a couple of reasons why people are trading out. And I learn so much from this segment each week, especially when you start talking about what the strategy would be for why you would want to get out of a player, because they come with a range of different situations. We've got people who have lost your money on the year, people who've earned your money on the year, people who are roundabout where they started and plateauing. Every situation's different, and it is such a worthwhile segment. The first one is one that we've been big proponents of from the beginning of the season, and those who've hung in there, it sounds like most of them are on their way out now. JJ McCarthy, the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, being traded out in 800 different leagues at the moment by super coaches. He's moved 7.1 million in value up to 10.8, but things are changing. Break-even's now out to 37, projections only 20. Is it just time to sell, mate?
Oh, it's definitely time to sell. Look, it's not something that's urgent. He can sort of sit on your bench as your quarterback 3, and he's not an urgent sell, but I completely understand why people are. He's injured. He's playing like absolute hot stack of arse. Like he is, just looks awful, honestly. There's no other way to actually put it. I'm sure there are other ways than hot sack of arse to put it, but in general, like he's just looking bad out there, and he's made his money. He's only going to start losing it even when he comes back and plays, and he's just not an option that you want to be playing on field at the moment. So, yeah, look, I was a lot higher on the KOC situation, at the Vikings, and I just think the fact is that KOC seems to be able to find a way to basically make any quarterback relevant in this offense, but McCarthy still can't find a way. So I can see a lot of parallels in what this trade is right now, because the guy that we'll get to later that's the most brought in is a perfect downgrade option to bank sort of $7 million or so as your sort of backup quarterback that you're not playing anyway. So for people who want that money and are making a second trade to upgrade, I completely understand it. But I also understand, like, even for my situation, I'm just not using a trade this week. I don't think it's an urgent week to do it with everyone on no one on buy, sorry. So I'm just holding pat with him because I know he can't lose me any money while he's injured as well or got the concussion. So look, I think it's one of those things that if you've got a plan to make money on him, do it. But if you want to hold him, it's fine as well.
Yeah, that is kind of the bonus of a player who's not going to be on the field can't. So they kind of get paused, don't they? There's sort of no penalty for them not being on the field, which is handy, especially this time of year now where SuperCoach is starting to run our trades day. So at the moment, using your trades in the most premium fashion, super important. What's funny is we've spent a lot of time with Emeka Egbuka between these lists over time. It was looking like it was going to be injured, and some of the big firepower in that team were coming back earlier in the year, and then they weren't, and he wasn't injured. So then people were buying him up again. Now they're on the out. He is 351 SuperCoaches less popular than he was at the start of the week. He has made you $7.5 million. He stands at almost $12 million in total value. But here we go. Same thing. Break even's over 40, projections under 20. As he just made our money and we're ready to get out of him.
The concern is Baker. For anyone who watched that game against the Rams, he obviously had the non-throwing shoulder injury. It's come out now that he didn't actually tear anything. It looks like it's just going to be a pain management thing. So that's at least good news for Egbuka, because honestly, if it's Teddy Two Gloves coming in, Teddy Bridgewater, for anyone who doesn't have any idea what the fuck I'm talking about, the backup quarterback, if he comes in, then it's just Egbuka is just completely not fantasy relevant. But if it's still Baker, or if he only misses one game, I think Egbuka's a fine hold. I would be fine because we've got the coverage, because there's no one on bye this week. We don't really need the position. Like, he can just sit on our bench and we don't have to move him. So if it's people who are just trying to get their final team sorted quickly, and they don't have Amon-Ra or St. Brown or Puka Nacua or someone they need to be finishing the year with, then I understand the upgrade. Like, let's say people have moved McCarthy down to, say, Sanders, and then they've got that $7 million and they want to upgrade. Absolutely, I've got no problem with it. But again, like I mentioned with McCarthy, he's a fine hold as well, just to see what happens with Baker, because he does have the pedigree, Egbuka, and you don't need to play him this week. He'll definitely be sitting on my bench.
Well, and that's what I've noticed. The numbers here this week in terms of trades in and out are depressed a little bit because there is no urgency to move out of players on bye. Haven't been so many stressful points to try and make sure that people are forced into tougher decisions. It does get easier from here. And when your second most traded out player is not even half as many trades as the most traded out player, and these numbers are depressed to start with, kind of shows you that there's sort of less urgency this week. The next one here is, I think, I'd understand the trade, but again, I think this kind of falls in the same basket as the other two. Without the injury, Travion Henderson has had 300 SuperCoaches given the move on, but he's made you $11 million. So this is one of those great ones where it's just about being able to use his value for premiumization, right, Tay? He's going to continue to make you money with a break even of 5 and a projection of 33. But folks who are just looking to make the upgrade now, that's the play, right?
I get it, but just from a SuperCoach standpoint, I don't think it's the week. I understand the idea of it, like you just pointed out, and especially because at the moment, like, we're struggling enough with running back start-sits. Like, every single week, there's questions on the Facebook pages and things like that. Who do I not start? It's like we're actually got an embarrassment of riches at running back at the moment, and it's like, do we need to be premium? Like trying to upgrade our guys at the moment anyway. I do understand the idea of possibly just like fully nuffing a guy like this, using the money in a completely different position just to give you that situation where you're not having to set a high-end premium at running back, because it's honestly probably the best spot to actually nuff maybe later in the year, because we're all going to have amazing starters. So I understand it from that aspect, but I don't quite understand it from trying to upgrade, because I feel like we're already struggling with start sits. So I don't actually know if I like that play. And the fact is, his break even's 5. We also need to see again what this running back breakdown is for the Pats next week, because he actually had almost all the carries. Like, yes, there was some goal line stuff that went between Jennings and Ramondre, but overall, Henderson was the lead back. And moving forward, he's got a game against the Giants this week, who are just getting torched on the ground. We just saw what Jahmyr Gibbs did. And honestly, Henderson has the most talent, and he has the biggest breakaway ability in that running back.
Oh, my God, he does,
It's like, would you be surprised if he has like, look, maybe not a 99 like Jahmyr Gibbs, but if he had 2 massive touchdowns, like 50, 60 odd, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. So I'm holding him because I just think there's more money to be made. And if I was planning to do that enough situation, I think he could be $2 or $3 million more in a couple of weeks. So why would I do it now?
Yeah, I think it's certainly this week, while you're still living on the 58-point day, I don't think there's a lot of urgency. And, like, he is my 5th running back, so I've kind of already nuffed out one of my running backs. So, like, to me, he is my clear 5th, so I don't even feel the pressure to start him. But he is my cover for McCaffrey next week. You know, so this is why I'm not in a hurry either, because I can see that there's still value for him, and he's still carrying over quite a big performance. Those big performances aren't necessarily dead. So, you know, this is another thing too. In some weeks, talking about a player who's had 300 trades might not even make the top 8. It's just because we're so depressed on trades this week that one like this comes up.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to find that as the numbers dwindle as we go further down this list, because there's about another 40 SuperCoach trades between that one and the next guy on the list, Rome Odunze, who'd been really sexy player earlier in the year when he was cheap. He'd recycled a pretty depressed year from the year before, and he came all guns blazing to open the season. Things have cooled off in that offense a little bit, and it's not always him. We've seen DJ Moore have nice games. We saw Luther Burden have a nice game. We've seen Colson Loveland games, and now Rome is kind of not looking like he's so bulletproof. He's already gone and made you around $4 million on the year, so he's not the biggest money earner, but he's earned your money, and his break-even's now 40 versus projection of 19. What's to say about this one, Tay?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I actually traded him last week. I traded him to Michael Wilson, who had a really low break even. And I didn't see him as a long-term play, but I just thought he's the kind of guy that if I could get like $4 million out of him in 2 weeks with this Marv injury, I could either use that money to either nuff him out and make a lot of money, or he honestly at the moment is playing so well, he might even just be a fine pod option later in the year. If let's say there's another game where Marv's missing and Jacoby Brissett just looks like one of the best passers in the league at the moment. So I sort of took that option, and I was actually pretty happy with the results, obviously, because Michael Wilson had another amazing game. But just in general, the Rome Odunze situation, I think it's just one you've probably got to get out of. He's made his money, his break-even's up there, plus I've been sort of touching on this on our main NFL fantasy show. The Bears are clearly starting to get the biggest use out of their high-end draft picks at the moment. They clearly went into the bye and figured out a way to get Colson Loveland and Luther Burden more involved. And you've already seen Burden sort of take over that wide receiver 3 role over Zacchaeus. But it's just sort of diversifying some of the targets too much for Rome. He was so dominant at the start. And then the problem is I don't even think he's the wide receiver 1 anymore. I think it looks like DJ Moore has kind of taken that role back a bit. 2 touchdowns last week, and he just seems to be getting more and more involved while he's healthy, DJ Moore. So there's just too many targets to go around. There's too many people taking targets in this team for me to ever be comfortable with Odunze moving forward. So I'm absolutely fine with the sell.
Yeah. It is a bit of a pity because he came out of the gates blazing, and I know a lot of people riding him in other versions of fantasy as well, and to see him tail off the way he has, it's been quite disappointing, so good time to get out of him. The next one on this list who's almost identical in terms of the amount of super coaches who've moved on from him. 257 super coaches have done what I finally did, Tay, after apologising for this guy most of the season. Justin Jefferson has lost you $7 million. He's now at $11.4 million, which is shocking to me. Weirdly, though, his projection and his break-even are not super disparate. Break-even to 30, projection of 23. So all of a sudden now he's actually priced around what he's producing. It's just what he's producing is not what we expect from Justin Jefferson. He's hurting people. I understand the move.
Yeah, get out. It's brutal. It's taken me and you and other people that have probably been so invested in NFL fantasy for many years to really see this, because we've been so used to Justin Jefferson being so dominant because his talent is still phenomenal. He's still one of the best wide receivers in the league. And he's in a situation with KOC, the coach, that generally their offenses move. But in the end, if you've got a supply problem at the quarterback position, it's just super hard to overcome. And then he's basically either getting JJ McCarthy, who is really struggling, or what is it, Brosma that's coming in. It looks like an undrafted, rookie. So it's like you just can't, like, honestly, if anything, Brosma might actually have a slight bigger upside because we just don't know what he is. But in the end, when you're getting a rookie, especially an undrafted one, generally they don't throw for a lot of touchdowns or yards. So yeah, there is just no upside to Jefferson at the moment. Even if he has a good game, it feels like it's going to be like somehow jagging a touchdown for like a 5 for 60 or something. It's not anything that gives you, SuperCoach winning levels. So I would just get him out, kind of like in the same vein of Rome Odunze, and I'd just try and upgrade him.
Just doesn't have a ceiling. That's the problem. He's got a pretty awful floor, and he just doesn't have a ceiling anymore. And it's not his fault, but you have to sell him. You just have to sell him. You're in a $7 million hole if you've had him all this time. There's the week to sell him was weeks and weeks and weeks ago. You and I finally sound like you finally accomplished that, Tay. I did about a fortnight ago too.
I never had him.
I've been so sorry.
I had never had to make this decision for my own team because I never had it.
For your sanity.
But I was with you, like you're the one that was sort of, going through it on the pod, but I was with you. I didn't see the point in selling him at that point, but, it's just been a disaster. And in the end, we're trying to, make our team as, high end in the starting positions for the run home. So I just think he's got to go.
He's got to go. There's another player down this list who I think is of a similar ilk where I didn't have that problem, but I've been on a sideline seat watching you have the problem, and that will come up. The next couple, that the amount of SuperCoach trades really dwindles here. You get down to only about 230 SuperCoaches who are still moving out of Jackson Dart. Again, this is just a bank on the 17 million, yeah, Tay?
It is, yeah. I assume they're moving. The assumption is that if people have Dart, it's probably their quarterback 3, and they're sitting there looking at all that money that they're not even using, and they just think there's no point. If people have Dart as their quarterback 2, I think I would honestly hold out for a little bit longer because obviously you've got to wait and see, his injury status and whether he's playing this week. It seems like he should be because he was close.
Being the Monday night, you would think it will be too. It's an extra couple of days,
Yeah, I imagine, honestly, if I had him, he might be a bit of a pod play. He's probably not a pod overall in terms of ownership, but a lot of people probably wouldn't be playing him right now. And because there's a lot of uncertainty over a lot of the high-end quarterback situations at the moment, I wouldn't mind actually just running him. But if he's quarterback 3 on your team and you're not using him and, there is a starter you can move to for 18 or so mil, I do understand that too, to make your other positions that's bit stronger. So I get that side of why people are selling, but honestly, if he was my quarterback too, I think I'd just hold.
Gosh, I don't think I've got the balls to have him as my quarterback too, so there you go. The next one on that list too is Drake London in the same sort of area, about 200 SuperCoaches moving on from him. He still made your money. He didn't play last week, so his status is very similar to last week, just like Jackson Dart. We expect that his break-even and his projection are both probably about right for his value. He needs about 40 a week. He's getting projected about 30, but he can score you 40, no dramas. It's the Kirk Cousins thing that's interesting to me. I just need to see that a little bit longer before I really trust it. So I understand why people are nervous about that and might be just going, you know what? I've made 5.5 million. Let's just put that into someone who I feel like is more stable.
Get out. Yeah, please. I said this last week, and even a week further on, at that price you have to. There's just too much money. Like, if he was sitting at like like what we talked about with Justin Jefferson or Emeka Egbuka, I could understand the hold and just sort of seeing how it looked when he was back with Kirk Cousins. But in the end, I just don't see the upside with Cousins there with this offense. We'll touch on, Bijan with Kirk Cousins. There's definitely some questions about that in the mailbag. But yeah, I just don't think this offense is going to be high end moving forward. I just think at that $21 million price or so, you just got to move him, and you could honestly move him to anyone. If you didn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba, you can literally move London straight over to him, which is honestly absurd because JSN's having like literally the best wide receiver season in the history of the NFL. He's on pace to have over 2,000 yards, which would be the most ever. So yeah, it's just hilarious what kind of price you've got on
London. People say that's crazy about things that are notable. That's actually crazy that Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is having the season of all seasons to ever have a season as a wide receiver, is the same cost as Drake London. It's like $300,000 in it. It's mental to me. And your high watermark for Drake London, you've probably met it, but just because you've got this like bonus week of knowing that his price hasn't gone anywhere since last week, I'd also just get hanging on to him through this week of, there's really nothing going on while there's no buy action. So. But, mate, if you don't have Smith and Jigba in your lineup, I think there's probably something really, really urgent to do there, and we'll talk about that when we get to the ins. The only other couple of players here, and I just wanted to bring up one in particular, is that Saquon Barkley has finally kind of made the list of people that are getting ditched. And this is a painful one because he started the season at $24 million. He's down at $15 million now. He's lost 9.5. And my heart goes out to people who've had him all year and have just been hoping for that turnaround. Because, we were big believers in Saquon Barkley at the start of the year. Felt like there was no reason that Saquon Barkley couldn't be the running back one on the season. I know a lot of people say, there's running back one last year and they never repeat. We kind of felt like it's a lazy take, but also that there was no reason not to have confidence seeing that so many of the things that were in place from the previous year were still in place this year and just has not materialised.
The offensive line's been the biggest thing for him. He's been more a product of that, and that's why I brought up 2 years ago is that the change from the Giants to the Eagles was just so absurd, and I just scooped him up everywhere in fantasy last year, and it was amazing. The fact is the offensive line play just hasn't been there. You've seen Lane Johnson just miss a lot of time, and just even the guys that are there just haven't been playing up to scratch that they were last year. So I think that's a big part of it. I think Barkley just hasn't looked quite the same either, so it's kind of a bit of both. And in terms of the situation here, I'm one of those unfortunate guys, and that's probably why I'm sitting at the rank I am. That's definitely held on this entire time. I think right now, I don't think I'd bother selling at this point because he's kind of that perfect running back 5 or 6 to play on matchups. I think we have so much talent in our running back positions at the moment that I just think you're kind of going sideways, maybe slightly up if you're going to someone else. Obviously, I have to know the specific, player you're going to, but I just think Saquon, even this week against the Bears are terrible against the running back position. They're definitely in the lower third in terms of defending the position. So I think there's a pretty good opportunity for him this week. I'm going to start him just because I think there are a lot of people questioning him right now and obviously some people selling. So I just think he's a good matchup play moving forward, but he's obviously someone you can bench in the harder matchups now. And it definitely isn't bulletproof. So yeah, I don't think I'd sell him, but I understand why people are worried.
Yeah. The move that it's funny to me that you can just move Travion Henderson to Saquon Barkley now and be a buyer of Saquon Barkley because he's not going to get surely he's not going to get worse. I know his break even's 46, his projection's 26, but surely it's not going to get much worse for Saquon. He can start putting up scores. His run home is not bad, but I understand the lack of confidence. Surely. It's a good time to move to our players traded in. Again, these numbers are suppressed. There is not a lot of trade movement this week compared to previous weeks. No surprises to kick off the list. One of the cheapest players in all of SuperCoach, who's now got a guaranteed role and exposure to score points, has a negative break even. You love that. Shedeur Sanders is only going to cost you $3.7 million. And Wheelie's projection's only 9, so just don't think that's really caught up. That break even a -6. The most popular move ever is McCarthy out, Shedeur Sanders in. That has dominated the moves where we've seen a transaction for McCarthy out at the same time we've seen a transaction for a quarterback in.
Yeah, I get it. It's not so much me giving the tick of approval, thinking that Sanders is going to have this amazing finish to the year. It's just situational. It's that we've made money from our third quarterback and we're looking to cash it in. And Sanders is just the best option in terms of an actual quarterback that could make money, but is at least playing. That's an absolute, bare minimum price. So it just makes sense that people either shifting McCarthy down to him or taking the huge plunge and say shifting a Jackson Dart down to him and getting 18 million that you can spend elsewhere. Crazy. Yeah, I get it. It just makes sense. Like I said, it's not a play on Sanders having an amazing finish. It's just a good SuperCoach play because we're all trying to funnel money into our starting lineup. So I completely get it.
In terms of just pathways to your final lineup, this is just so much sense. And this is why 930 SuperCoaches have done it. It is a chasm. Nay, I had a mate who used to say this if you wanted to emphasize how big a chasm actually was. And shout out to Euros, who I'm sure is not playing NFL Supercoach, but he used to call it a chasm if it was a super big chasm. And I feel like that's something we could probably bring back, Euros, a chasm. George Pickens is the next most traded in player with less than 400 Supercoaches picking him up. That's how big the gap is, from 930 to 500. To 385. It's a mental gap between the most traded in and the next most traded in. But Pickens, mate, we kept on thinking he might be a kind of guy that you steal when Lamb comes back. He's just proven to be an excellent wide receiver, continues to make money. It's made you $7 million, and his break even at this point as an $18 million investment, is -3. So he is continuing to earn more and more money and points. Both. This is the magic. It's both in George Pickens.
Look, George Pickens has given me an orgasm, mate. He's absolutely on fire. And we're actually at this crazy point that we're actually questioning who the wide receiver one is at the Cowboys. Lamb's having some drops and George Pickens is making some of the most phenomenal plays you'll ever see. Yeah. We knew he had it in him. George Pickens was actually probably a contender. You and I do this thing in the preseason on our regular NFL fantasy show where we pick my guys, where we basically love guys where they're going at ADP, average draft position. And Pickens was a finalist for me at wide receiver. I have a lot of shares of him in redraft because I love that he was going sort of that mid-20s in the draft at wide receiver. And I just felt like his skill set paired perfectly with Dak. For SuperCoach point of view, though, it's been very different for me than it has been for redraft because I've obviously taken him, at a lower price and just held on to him, and that's been fruitful. But I've always had question marks in SuperCoach because Lamb's always been in the background. It's always been, Pickens has had a great game, but Lamb's coming back, and what happens when Lamb's back, and even these games, you're like, but what happens next week when Lamb has some massive game and Pickens is? I just don't know if that's going to happen. I honestly think they just have two wide receiver. I think they have two wide receiver ones at this point. I just think this offense, yes, the defense has gotten better, but it's still not a very good defense overall, especially against the pass. Like they get torched by the pass still, so they're going to need to still score a lot of points. And I just think there's so much offense to go around in this team that you can actually just have two guys getting wide receiver one production. So the 18 mil is a little bit high, I think. But in the end, like if this is a play you want to make just based off what you've seen in the last couple of weeks, I've got no problem with it, honestly, because yes, I would prefer guys like Amon-Ra and Puka and things like that. But if you've got all those guys and you just want that little bit of a point of difference, I don't mind Pickens. He looks great, and I wouldn't want Lamb and Pickens on the same team. I think you're picking one or the other.
Capture upside, yeah.
But, look, if you don't have Lamb and you just want to go a different way from him, why not take the guy on the opposite side of the field because he's absolutely dominating.
And you thought 18 million was high, Tay. Next guy on the list who's traded in by just a shade over 300 Supercoaches is at $26 million. I don't know how you don't bring Jahmyr Gibbs in at this stage. He's had a few really great weeks. I know he's a lot of money, but if you want to have the highest scoring team by the end of the year, you need to have Jahmyr Gibbs by the look of it. He's only made 2.8 mil over the year because he's had his funks and he's had his great games and it's all kind of leveled out a little bit. But when he's got a break even of 5 against a projection of 48, it's saying he's going to score points, he's going to make you money, and he's going to continue to keep the loom spinning. It's a lot of outlay.
Yeah, look, if you had Jameer Gibbs, you're playing with your peen. I think some handsome man already said that at the top of the podcast.
Yeah.
But look,
I think
in
so.
the end,
It's familiar.
it gives me a lot of, I guess, it makes me feel good because I had a lot of questions early on about, well, do I go Gibbs or do I go Jonathan Taylor?
Yes.
Obviously, the answer was finding a way to get both. But there was a few weeks, obviously, early on there where Jonathan Taylor was just destroying, Gibbs. And Gibbs had a couple of games there where it just sort of wasn't getting used. And there was a game like not that long ago. It was like 3 weeks ago, I think, where they lost at home to the Vikings and he was barely used at all.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's got the ceiling games like this because this Detroit offense hums. They've got a great offensive line. And there's always big breakaway ability for Jameer Gibbs, and you saw it here in spades. Like, he's just got such an upside that you have to have him, I believe, because you can't miss these 80 to 100 point games. Like, they are just too crucial for you on the run home. And at least if he has like an off game, you've got a flex. You don't have to take the score, or it's generally outside of that one game isn't going to be absurdly low that it's going to kill you either. So yeah, I just think you've got to have him in this offense. He seems to be getting used a lot more than Monty at the moment. And yeah, he's got too high a ceiling to not have in your team. So yes, 26 mil is a huge outlay. Obviously it hurts you if you haven't had him up until this point. But yeah, a low break even again for this week. I think I'd be finding any way to get him in. I'm still going to die on this hill that I like him better than Jonathan Taylor. Yes, it's annoying. It is annoying that he isn't getting everything. But I feel like I'm finally getting some kind of reprieve on this take. Obviously, again, if you didn't have Jonathan Taylor, it just killed you in SuperCoach this year. But in terms of just moving forward, I think I'd actually rather Gibbs than Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of do too, because I just feel like he has more ways to kill you. And I've said that all year too. And last week was the perfect example. Jonathan Taylor isn't doing that. So
he's more matchup proof too. Jonathan Taylor has games where he comes up against tough rush defenses and he just doesn't get it going. And these teams force Daniel Jones to try and beat him, and then obviously he can't, like the Chiefs last week. Whereas Gibbs gets it done in so many different ways. Yes, he doesn't get as many of the snaps at the running back position because he's got Monty there, but he is so game script proof that he can get it done in any way. So that's kind of why I think it makes up for the less snaps.
Yeah, I agree too. He's got such higher value per touch in my mind. And I think we're going to see a common theme here now down the remaining handful on this most traded in list. These are all people where the outlay is significant. And it's significant because these are people who are making moves where they are trying to get out of bad investments or get out of people who've just made them a shite ton of money and getting into firmer assets. And I love that. Because this is the goal, right? And we're at the spot now where you want your final lineup. And the way NFL works versus rugby league is that you can kind of bank that some of these people are going to be pretty steady performers, and that a lot of them have, I guess, what you kind of consider to be pretty good base stats, to use a term I come across a lot in the rugby league version of the game. We haven't really talked about that in this version of the game, but we probably need to start a conversation on that. The guys in the next band.
I was going to say, Matty C. Sorry, you're probably about to do it anyway. We could honestly probably talk about the next five together. And you were about to say it is a band. It is pretty much guys bringing in starting level caliber wide receivers that they want on the run home. It's like literally the next five guys on this list. Probably like the five guys you probably want to have in your starting lineup on the run home. Yep. So it is an interesting thing because we could almost look at this and almost go, you know what, these are all good buys, but like where would we rank them as buys? So almost something like I'm doing this on the spot myself. I haven't actually forecasted this myself for the episode, but it's probably not a bad idea for us to almost just like take a look at these guys and go hit from 1 to 5 of these five guys. Who are the best buys?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, in terms of how they're getting moved in, the order of that is Jackson Smith and Jigba and Rashee Rice are pretty much neck and neck. Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown are pretty much neck and neck, and barely behind that is Puka. And they're all sort of between 150 and 200 super coaches making that move. So this is really a consolidation move. And these numbers aren't very big because most people are very happy with their wide receivers. And to me, this is just a case of, okay, you just need to give yourself the best 7 options, and then you can feel free to nuff out your 8th, because we've only got really couple of teams left to go on their buys, and it seems like the Giants, no impact there. The Patriots, no impact there. The 49ers, no impact there. So this is really about people getting their final lineup right. What order would you put these in, Tay, in terms of must-have to the least must-have out of these 5 dynamic receivers?
I was going to say that the reason why all of them are so low in terms of the trade-ins is because I think it's a lot of people who have 4 of the 5 that are just trying to get the 5th. It's like almost everyone has most of them. So it's like there isn't like huge trading numbers on a lot of them because like most people have most of them already, if that makes sense. So it's just like you said, they're just trying to, get their best lineup and they're like, oh, I've got everyone but Rashee Rice. So I need to get Rashee Rice or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much the only reason these guys are so low. And then obviously the fact that people are starting to run out of trades. But yeah, these are definitely the 5 guys you want to target in your wide receiver position for the run home. What I might do is I might actually go from the lowest to the highest.
Okay.
I brought this up, I believe it was 2 shows ago, the last time you and I were on together. I had a little bit of concern over the run home for Rashee Rice. I didn't have concern in terms of his role. It was just they had a lot of very good wide receiver defenses in terms of against the wide receiver position in fantasy. So I wasn't sure exactly with the Chiefs on their run home. Yes, they're going to have to keep playing because they don't have an amazing record. So it's not that I'm worried about the Chiefs in terms of their like motivation because their motivation has to be there to even make the playoffs. I believe they actually sit outside the playoffs if they were to start today. So yes, I don't worry that side of it. It's just that I think there are some tough matchups moving forward. If you actually look at all these wide receivers, he definitely has the toughest run home in terms of defenses against the wide receiver position. So I would have him lowest because I think there is going to be not a lot of huge ceiling games for him. He's super consistent, and I'm not saying you don't want him in your run home team. I'm just saying out of these 5 guys, because we are very much at the tippy top of these guys, I think he would be the lowest for me. Next up, I would probably put Jamar Chase, just because my concern moving forward is that, yes, Joe Burrow's back, and that might be great. He has also missed a lot of time, and it's his first game back. What happens if they lose another 2 games? Do they just punt this entire season? Yes, Joe Flacco coming back in isn't the worst either. But you also got to then factor in, like, do they even have motivation for Jamar Chase to even keep playing? He gets the slightest niggle, he's going to sit. It just, for me...
He wakes up with a headache, they'll shut him down.
Yeah, I just think with the situation the Bengals season is in, it makes me worry a little bit about him moving forward. But again, right now as it stands, I've got no problem with people having him in the team. I know I do in my team. The top 3 are super hard because you have to factor in price. I personally think this is the worst because JSN is my favorite receiver in the league. But you have to look at it on paper in terms of price. And the fact is, Amon-Ra and Puka at $16 million and JSN at 21. The $5 million extra, I just don't know if JSN is $5 million better than those 2 guys. Like, I want all 3, of course. They are the 3 best.
Yes.
But if you're going to look at value for guys you have to bring in right now, I would probably have JSN 3rd. And then look, I'm going to give Amon-Ra the edge in terms of being first because he's just the lowest price, and I just like all 3 guys basically the same. So Puka, people might be a little bit worried about last week. He had a fine game, but that was because they were boat racing the Buccaneers. Yeah. Like, they were just
done the damage.
They didn't pass in the second half. They didn't have to. So
and he already had 7 catches for like 100. He was fine.
I will say, and I've said this entire year, Puka has the lowest upside. Because Adams gets a lot of the touchdown looks. And look, I haven't got everything right, but the Adams-Puka thing is probably the thing I've nailed the absolute most. Like, I called that Adams would have the highest touchdowns in the entire league at the wide receiver position to start the year, and I said they were both going to be top 12 wide receivers, and both have been 100% correct so far. They are just so good. They're yin and yang. Like, Puka gets himself open for the 10 or 15 yard dump-offs, and then Adams is just so trusted in the red zone. He can make a man miss with 1 yard of space. He is just so good. He's a goal line running back at the wide receiver position. They just use him there all the time, and this offense is always in the red zone when it needs to be, obviously outside of when they're destroying teams in the second half. So I just think Puka, he doesn't have the biggest upside. So I put him at second. I would put Amon-Ra first because he's the lowest price, and JSN third. But look, in the end, those top three, I want all three, definitely.
Oh, yeah. So from fifth to first, I'm just going to go through that again. Rashee Rice, then Jamar Chase. They both have uncertainties around them, and schedule is a big part of Rashee's difficulties. And then from there, we're going Njigba, Puka, and Amon-Ra, 3, 2, 1. And a lot of that based on the economy of it. It's not necessarily about the football of it, it's the economy of it, because there's money involved, and those two are definitely $5 million cheaper than Smith and Jigba. So that really works against Smith and Jigba. Have I got that summary right?
Yep, no, 100%, mate. Like, honestly, if I was to say the run home, I'd probably have JSN as my highest rated wide receiver on the run home.
Yeah,
very closely followed by Puka and Amon-Ra. But in the end, it's SuperCoach, it's value. The fact you can get those guys for $5 million less, that's what tips it over for me. Because honestly, you're splitting hairs when you're talking about those three. So if you're going to give me $5 million savings for the other two, that's the way I'd have to go.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster.
This dovetails beautifully into our trades, because while I haven't done any trades and you're talking about these, I own those top three and I'm very happy with them. I don't own the fourth or the fifth one, and I'm not actually super compelled to move either of them in. The one that's interesting for me is that I'm still a Drake London owner, and that probably gives me the freedom to want to make a move into another, bulletproof wide receiver. But neither Chase or Rashee are super appealing to me, and I'm probably actually going to sit on no trades this week.
Yeah, look, I get it. I probably... Look, how many trades do you have left?
4.
Yeah, I'm at 4 as well. I understand that, because I still think that you still want to hold those 4 for when you're forced into it, like for actual injuries that you're like, I can't even start this guy. London, if I was to make any, it would be London over to either Jamar Chase or Rashee. Like, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. But I understand, because you don't have to start London, you've probably got other guys that you're pretty comfortable with in your starters. I understand not forcing yourself into that trade either. The only thing is, you're probably going to need to trade London eventually anyway when he's back, because you don't want to lose that money that he's up there with. So that would be, I guess, the other reason. But if you can hold off another week and not use a trade and hold those 4 for the last, 4 or so weeks, or be 5 weeks, sorry. No, it'd be 4 weeks. No, it's 5. Fuck me. I'm all over the place. I always get done where it's like I'm counting 14 to 18, and then I realise it's actually 5, not 4.
5 instead of 4.
and then I confuse myself, because in regular NFL fantasy you don't really count week 18, but obviously in SuperCoach
we definitely don't.
Yeah. And by the way, there's going to be a shit. That's going to be an absolute shit fight. So you're going to want some trades for them. So that's a good point.
Yeah. That's going to be awful. We're going to have people who can't fill lineups. It's going to be awful.
It's going to be absolute dog's breakfast. So I can't wait for that. But look, in the end, I understand it. If you've got good starters, then I don't feel that you're compelled to actually have to make that move yet anyway.
Yeah. Are you making any moves this week, mate?
No, I'm not either. So our trades are pretty boring. I'm just in the similar boat. I just don't have any urgent moves. I really want to. I've only got 4 left as well. I really want to hold them until I have to use them at this point. I'm very happy with my starting lineup. If I'm moving guys, it's really like splitting hairs in terms of who I'm then starting anyway. So it's like, I'm just going to hold pat at the moment. There's definitely guys I'd prefer than some of my starters, but it's not by enough to force me into it. So, I'm definitely staying put this week, mate.
Yeah, and I think there's probably my favourite thing about my lineup is that I've just rolled all year with the Titans as one of my defences, and they've had weeks where they've been terrible or whatever. But they do just enough to force a turnover here and there, and they've meant that I can keep them. They were the bottom of the defensive pricing tree at the start of the year with the Jags. The Jags made me some money. I tipped them out. I've got the 49ers now who I can start. But these folks who've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on their defense, and it's probably come up for them somewhat. But I'm glad I haven't had to worry about the investment there. that I started with the cheapest. The 49ers are back around about where the Titans and the Jags were to start the season. And now the defense is actually starting to create some turnovers, so I'm happy with it. That's kind of been the one bit of my lineup I've probably been happiest with all year, where I've looked at my wide receivers some weeks and gone, fucking hell, all the injuries, all the inconsistency. Running backs, where it's been a death match at times for if you can even get players to start because of things like concussions and injuries. And then all those mega bye weeks. And then the ups and downs of quarterbacks with you start with your Josh Allen's, you finish with your Josh Allen's, but then Josh Allen goes and throws up a 20-point week, a week you really need him. Like it's been one area where I've had so little turmoil, and I'm very happy with myself. And here I am spruiking about defenses when I know how much you hate defenses.
I made the move to Baltimore about 4 weeks ago because I said I like their run home, and they obviously had to keep winning. I've been happy with that too. They've actually they haven't had any like enormous weeks, but they've actually done pretty.
They just do enough.
Yeah, they've done enough. So I've been actually pretty happy with that move. They've actually made money. While I got them at the high $4 million mark, I think I got them. So I felt like the stats moving forward for them didn't really show what the stats had been in the previous 10 or so weeks because they were just decimated by injury. So I was pretty happy with that move. But look, we spent way too much time. We spent about 10 or 15 seconds on defenses just then. That's way too many.
Too many. And that does, we are up against the clock a little bit. I want to make sure we get into the mailbag. We've got about 10 minutes we can dedicate to our mailbag before we've got to close this one out. But Tate, the mailbag, it was a weird week for mailbag. It looked like it was not going to be much. And then all of a sudden there was this tidal wave. Who can we help in the mailbag this week?
Yeah, it was funny because the old Facebook group, it looked like it definitely blocked my post. It was definitely a crude Jameer Gibbs reference that I had posted. So I definitely had a feeling that it wasn't going to be allowed. And so it sat there in managed posts and waiting to be approved, which I'm certain was never, ever going to happen. So I basically lost a day of people getting questions in. So I thought we weren't going to have a big mailbag, but then all of a sudden some flowed in really late. So we're going to be sort of touching on those at the last minute now, mate.
Yeah. Well, who's going to be important to help here? Because we know that there's people who've got all kinds of varied versions of decisions to make for their lineups and money moves. Who are we going to help first?
Yeah, look, I'm going to go into Kate Upton. He's been a big supporter, obviously, from the Gibbers group. Yeah. So, look, he's just gone a pretty stock standard question of best captaincy options for this week.
Good question.
You and I didn't actually touch on our captains, so that this kind of flows in pretty well. So what I've actually done is I've sort of done a little bit of a top three of guys that I think have very good matchups this week. So first off is someone very well owned, and it's Josh Allen against the Steelers. Yep. They're 24th against the quarterback position. I just really like him for a bounce back after a tough game against the Texans. The Texans' defense is phenomenal. I don't even know if they've given up a top 12 quarterback performance all year. They are just a very, very good defense. And then obviously their offense isn't exactly killing it with Davis Mills. So even though he's been obviously a surprise, he's 3-0 himself, but in the end, they have to win their games with their defense. So I just think that was what happened with Josh Allen last week. My next one's Jalen Hurts up against the Bears, who are 22nd against the quarterback position. I just think obviously it was Saquon not exactly dominating, even though this is a good matchup for the running back position as well. Hurts is having to do a bit more. And then obviously you're getting the, crap load of points for each time he gets his ass pushed into the end zone. So, yeah, I just think he's a very good option as well.
8, it matters.
And the third one for this week is Patrick Mahomes against the Cowboys.
Yes.
He is playing early, so he could be your VC option. But I just thought in general, just picking captaincy options here. The Cowboys, even though since they made the couple of trades, they have been a lot better defensively, but that's generally been against the running back position. So they've shored up, Quinnen Williams is one of the best rush stoppers in the league, and that's who they traded for. Yep. It's not helped their secondary at all. If anything, teams are attacking their secondary more because they know they can't just run on them anymore. So this is where Patrick Mahomes, I think, is going to be able to eat on the Cowboys. And the Cowboys seem to be able to score a lot of points on the other side themselves, especially at home. So I think this could be one of those shootout style games. So I think Mahomes is definitely a great option for a captaincy as well. Quick
aside on this, actually, because we have kind of left the lead buried on this one. 3 games on Thursday Night Football this week. So Friday our time because of Thanksgiving, and they're back to back to back. It starts before you even wake up at 5 a.m. And then there's also a Saturday game this week. So in terms of players playing early, you mentioned that about Mahomes. He's playing the night game on Thanksgiving, but Jalen Hurts is actually playing Saturday morning, 7 a.m. our time as well. So he's playing early too. So just things to be wary of when it does come to sitting captains and how you use your captain and vice captain. Nothing that really is pertinent. I've continued to leave Josh Allen as my captain, but I also think it is not mad to captain Smith and Jigba against anybody. He just scores points. It will be extraordinarily unpopular. It may be a way to create a point of difference with a player who is ubiquitously owned.
Yep. No, if you look at his game log, his consistency this year has been absurd as well. So you're almost never getting a low score out of him. Whereas even in the quarterback's position with Josh Allen, there's actually been some low games. So you're right. He is a very safe captain with upside. So absolutely no problem there, mate.
Like creating a pod from a very well-owned player. But yeah.
Exactly. I'll go to Raymond Walker. So with Kirk Cousins under centre, is Bijan no longer a top 4 running back for the run home? Would you keep him over Achane? No, I wouldn't. I'd go to Achane. I 100% would go to Achane. And I don't know if I'm a weird Dolphins apologist, but I love Achane and Jalen Waddle moving forward. Yes. My worry with Bijan, just with Kirk, is there's no upside in this offense. Like, I personally am sitting Bijan this week. I know that sounds nuts, but I just don't see the upside in him at the moment. I just think that with this Kirk, Captain Kirk-led offense, they just aren't going to score enough points or be in the red zone enough for me to think that Bijan has a big upside. And we've got such good starters in our running back position at the moment. I just think Bijan, definitely not top 4. I don't even have him in my top 5 this week. I really think that Achane is the kind of guy, even at 21 million, that if you're looking for a guy that I don't think everyone has at the top, he's a very, very good trade option for me. I was going to bring him up when we talked about Saquon. I actually think that if you were to go to someone and you really wanted to upgrade that position, it would be a guy like Achane, because he's just involved in everything. It's like, even if they're not running the ball well, he's getting shitloads of targets. They just go to him in any situation, and he's just so consistent as well. So I really, really like that. Honestly, if you could move Bijan to him, I would do it.
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot of money in both those Falcons too, both Drake London and Bijan. If you're in a position where, I don't know why you would do this, but if you own both and you wanted to get out of them, you'd have $40 million to play with and give you an options there. But yeah, I don't know how you have confidence with Bijan this week, especially if you've got the opportunity to either move to or start HM over him. I'd be doing that too.
Yep. All right, another one of our favourites, and Reese Christensen. He's just gone very generic. Is Lamar gone? Is basically Lamar. Bro, that's a new one.
The big man.
Is Lamar not the man that puts it together? Is he someone that we shouldn't either be trying to bring in, or if we've got him, should we be trying to move him out, Matty C?
I am staying in the Flames, Tay. I know I should have learnt from the Justin Jefferson experience, but I'm just staying in the Flames. There's a team who are playing playoffs every week, and their only way to secure a playoff spot is to keep winning, and their clearest path to that is through Lamar Jackson distributing the ball, scoring points, occasionally moving, and maybe even scoring a rushing touchdown here or there. I don't think he actually has to do anything supermanish to do it, but I think that because they're going to rely on him to do it, I'm just willing to stay in the Flames. I find it hard to imagine a world where Baltimore don't make the playoffs.
I'm not going to touch too much on this because we've got a question about quarterbacks on the run home, and I might delve into Lamar a little bit more on that. But I'll just say I'm on your side on this one, and I've got a pretty specific reason. I can see why people are shitting their pants because it just doesn't look the same. But I've definitely still got a reason as to why I still think he's up there in terms of quarterbacks for the run home.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they get Cincinnati this week straight away. So this is kind of where I've got some confidence. Speaking of that,
Shane from the Gibberers group asked the best 3 quarterback options for the run home outside of Josh Allen.
Here we go.
So I'll just touch on Lamar. So I had Lamar second on my list. It's all about schedule. I keep breaking this down to, great matchups, middling matchups, and terrible ones.
Yeah.
He's got 5 great ones in the last 6 weeks. 5 out of 6 are like amazing matchups.
Yeah.
Yes, technically the Jets were last week and he didn't go great, but obviously he's still coming back. And I would suggest that every week that goes by, his injury is going to get better, not worse. I do think you're going to start seeing a better side of Lamar. And look, in the end, against this Bengals team, fucking Justin Fields threw for 300 yards on the bloody Bengals. Do I need to say any more? Like, this Bengals team cannot stop
volumes. Yeah.
anything. So, yeah, I just think that he's got the Bengals twice on the run home. He's just got amazing matchups, and I just think he has to be still considered. Jalen Hurts, for me, obviously I brought him up as a captaincy option. He's got 3 great matchups, 2 middling and 1 bad. But in the end, because of the tush-push and just generally even bad matchups against quarterback, they seem to coincide with not great ones against the running back either, and then Saquon hasn't been dominating those. So generally they've had to lean on Hurts. So I just think he's a super consistent option for the run home. And a third one is just a guy I want to shout out, and someone I brought up in the preseason as someone I just thought it was getting drafted so late, Matt Stafford. He's got 3 great and 3 middling. But what's great at the moment is he uses Adams like a running back in the red zone.
Yeah.
The problem with Matt Stafford last year was Kyron was just getting every red zone touch and they were rushing everything in. Now, because he's got both Puka and Adams in the red zone, they are just throwing in way more touchdowns this year. And that's not to say that Kyron isn't still getting involved to a degree. Like, he's still getting a decent amount of touchdowns on the ground, but they are just using Adams like he's a running back, but he's getting a pass, and it's helping Stafford. And the fact is, they are just going to be a great offense in whoever they play. And if a huge percentage of these touchdowns they score are actually in the air and not on the ground, Stafford's just going to have a great finish to the year. And like I brought up in the start of the season, he's got 2 cocks. Hey, dude, I put it at 3 cocks initially because of Kyron, but he's got 2 cocks out there, Matty C. He's got Adams and he's got Puka. Like, honestly, no one else has 2 receivers like that are really in the NFL. So, yeah, it just makes him a great fantasy option moving forward.
Yeah. Every passing touchdown worth 4 more points than a rushing touchdown to whoever scores them. But Stafford's not sneaking them in. You've got to get the passing touchdown, and every time it's going to Adams, then it's just 12 points that Stafford wouldn't have got compared to previous seasons where he was just so reliant on that running game in the short area. And not that I don't love Kyron Williams, I have been. I've always loved Kyron Williams. But Stafford, it's such a nice call and also a great point of difference. There's a world where we might see Matt Stafford as the MVP of the league. Isn't that mad at 37?
Oh, he has to be the huge favourite. Like, this team is humming. I don't think they're going to lose many games on the run home. Was a 30-2 touchdown interception rate. It's honestly phenomenal. Like, he's just turning back the clock. If anything, he looks better now than he did 10 years ago. Like, it's just absurd.
Yeah. There have been years where there have been more men land on the moon than we've seen Matt Stafford intercept this year. It's mad. It's mad.
Yep. And it's not like he's... It's not. I know he's got 2 cocks and they're getting open, but the fact is, some of his throws are just high difficulty. Like, you see, he's like sidearm throws. He's doing no looks. Like, he's just
no looks.
He's just laughing out there. Like, he's getting protected. He's got 2 guys he can throw to, and they use these tight end sets where everyone's worried about Puka and Adams, and then these tight ends just run free, and then Kyron's there if they need it. And yeah, they've just got an amazing offense, and it was definitely one that you and I definitely got right in the preseason with the Rams.
Yeah, all over it. You're very vocal about it, and I'm glad that you're getting the bask in the sunlight of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely hefty Adams owner in fantasy this year.
I won't say any league that you didn't own Adams in. I tried to make sure I got in front of you. That's really the Adams, diaspora in leagues that we share. It's just
and if you can imagine a run it straight challenge where, like, Matty C's trying to just stand there and stop me, and I'm just trying to shove him through a wall.
I think we should set that up in the off season too, just for shits and gigs. Let's set it up.
And we're sorry to I know we're going to finish, but it just reminds me of a story. I had a mate that I played basketball with, and he was only probably like, I don't know how tall he is. I don't want to say something absurdly low, but he's probably like 5'7" or something, which is probably actually an average height, but for a basketballer, obviously not very tall. And basically, we used to do this thing called towel fights, where you'd go away on school, basketball trips, and you'd essentially box each other, but you'd wrap towels around your hands. And for whatever reason, they decided to put him against me. And the idea was that he'd done like boxing and stuff before. So the idea was like, Taylor doesn't fight anyone because no one's willing to fight him. Maybe this guy would actually be able to get to him. Anyway, what would happen was we'd do it. And then every single round, they realized this is stupid. So they'd handicap me one thing even worse, to a point where I had to sit on my knees with an arm tied behind my back.
Oh my God. For an actual boxer.
I don't know why that just reminded me, because I'm like, is there going to be a point if you and I did a run and straight challenge where I'm just on my knees and I can't move and it's just you running and I can't do anything?
Oh my God. No, mate, I'm going to take you from the back fence, mate. I'm confident.
Oh, great. Just another thing we're going to have to do in the off season.
You only die once, mate, so I'm going to go over the back.
This is my moment. Next question comes in from David Muscat. He's got a two-parter for us. First question, point of difference wide receiver. Everyone's wide receiver is looking similar. Analysis of some overlooked wide receiver who have weaker strength of schedule moving forward. All right, I've got a couple here for you, David. I will say that wide receiver in general probably isn't the position I would be targeting, Pods, just because the guys that are at the top are there for a reason. But I know we are trying to obviously move up ranks. So I did want to write down a couple of guys here for you specifically. The first one is Jalen Waddle at 4.4% ownership. He's coming off his bye now, and his strength of schedule was great. I always talk about great matchup, middling matchup, and terrible matchup. He doesn't have a terrible matchup the whole rest of the way, so everything's going to be very good for the passing offense of Miami moving forward, including against the Saints this week. So I think it's honestly wheels up for Jalen Waddle. He's one of my favorite regular NFL fantasy picks for the rest of the year, and I think he could be very, very good for any potential owners and SuperCoach as well. The next one is astonishing to me, and I've talked about how I like Matt Stafford on the way home as a quarterback. Devontae Adams is 4.6% ownership. And yes, everyone's got Puka, so people probably aren't wanting to have both Rams receivers. But my question is why? Devontae Adams is wide receiver 6 on the season, and he is just used like he's a goal line running back at the wide receiver position for this Rams offense. And they move the ball so well. For strength of schedule, he doesn't have a bad matchup for the rest of the year either. I've talked about how good I think the schedule is for the Stafford moving forward, but Adams is just honestly a piece of that. And honestly, I think for people that, Puka doesn't really have the ceiling, but Adams does, because he's the kind of guy that could have a 3-touchdown performance on any week, just because of the way that they use him. So I think on the way home that Adams is a very, very good pod option for people wanting to go a different route. And the last question is, do we expect any mass restings on the way home? NFL isn't so much like that, David. I know we've had that with NRL a lot, but the idea is, because there's only one team that gets a bye now, it's almost always up for grabs all the way until week 18. So I will touch on all the way until week 17. I don't imagine there's going to be anyone rested unless they have to be, unless they're really, really carrying an injury that they probably would have been missing a game anyway. But for this year, you'll see players playing all the way to week 17. It's week 18 that things could go completely awry. Basically, guys that are in teams that aren't competing will probably rest. Teams that basically have sewn up their position will rest. So week 18 is going to be an absolute nightmare. It's the main reason that in just general NFL fantasy, everyone always plays their grand final in week 17 because week 18 is an absolute nightmare. So if you want to save trades, that's going to be the week to do it because we are going to have an absolute colossal calamity in terms of restings in week 18. It just happens every single year. So yes, that would be my answer, is that no all the way until week 18, and then week 18 we could see a lot. So hopefully that helped you.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster.
Well, look, with all that said, the NFL SuperCoach Halfa brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network. Check out our great stable of shows, including G'day Gridiron through the midweek and also again on Saturdays, reacting to the prior week's games, taking fan reactions, previewing Thursday night football, and then also talking about the 4 biggest games from the Sunday slate and previewing Monday night football. You get that every week here on the Aussie Gridiron Network. You can also catch Tay and I on our regular fantasy jaunt to the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. We run on a Friday and a Sunday. It's going to be a big week. We're actually going to have to run starts of the week on the Friday show just to make sure we've got some eligible players. But we've got some super special guests from within the network to bring on for that one. In the meantime, the SuperCoach Halfa, our league, is there for you to win free stuff. Find the code. It's in the show notes where you found this podcast. My name's Matty C. We'll see you all next week after Thanksgiving. Hooroo, super coaches.
Hooroo. Thank you, super coaches.
SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it fast.